Have you ever had one of those moments where you cancel plans, sit down on your couch, the room finally quiet, and instead of feeling lonely, you feel relief? Like your nervous system just exhaled for the first time all day. And then, almost immediately, a little voice creeps in and says, "Is this weird? Am I becoming antisocial? Is something wrong with me?" Because somewhere along the way, we were taught a very loud idea, that wanting to be alone must mean you're sad, broken, rejected, or hiding from life. That if you prefer your own company, something must have gone wrong socially. But psychology tells a very different story, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. People who prefer being alone aren't running away from life. In many cases, they're running towards something quieter, deeper, and strangely powerful. Let me show you what's actually happening inside your brain. Picture this. You've just spent hours around people. Conversations, small talk, subtle social cues, reading the room, responding appropriately, laughing at the right moments. Nothing dramatic, nothing bad, just constant input. By the time you get home, your body feels tired in a way sleep doesn't quite fix. Your thoughts feel fuzzy. Your patience is thinner than usual. That's not weakness. That's cognitive load. Your brain is a prediction machine. When you're around people, it's constantly working, interpreting facial expressions, monitoring tone, adjusting your responses, suppressing impulses, choosing words. Even enjoyable social interaction costs mental energy. For some brains, especially those wired toward depth, sensitivity, or high self-awareness, that cost is higher, not worse, just higher. Psychologists call this sensitivity to stimulation. Some nervous systems process more information at once. Sounds feel louder, emotions feel richer, conversations go deeper, faster. The upside is insight, creativity, empathy. The downside is faster overload. Solitude becomes the reset button, not the escape hatch. Think of it like this. Some phones have massive batteries and can run 100 apps at once without breaking a sweat. Others have ultra-high-resolution screens that show every detail beautifully, but drain faster. You wouldn't call that phone defective. You'd just know it needs charging more often. Alone time is the charger. Here's where things get interesting. People who genuinely prefer being alone often aren't low in social skill. They're usually high in it. They notice subtleties others miss. They pick up on contradictions, emotional undercurrents, unspoken tensions. Their brains don't filter as aggressively. They take in more data, and more data means more processing. So when they choose solitude, it's not because people are boring. It's because people are intense. There's also something else at play. Internal richness. If you're comfortable being alone, it often means your inner world is active enough to keep you company. Thoughts loop, ideas connect, memories surface, questions unfold. Silence doesn't feel empty. It feels spacious. History is full of people like this. Writers who took long walks alone, philosophers who withdrew from society not out of hatred but curiosity, scientists who did their deepest thinking in isolation. Even today, many breakthroughs don't happen in brainstorming rooms. They happen in quiet moments when the mind finally has room to wander without interruption. And yet, modern culture subtly shames this preference. We live in a world that equates visibility with value. Being busy looks important. Being social looks successful. Being alone looks suspicious. If you're not constantly connected, people wonder what you're missing. But psychology flips that question around. What if you're not missing out, but tuning in? Another layer here is autonomy. People who prefer being alone often value control over their mental environment. When you're alone, your attention belongs to you. Your pace belongs to you. You can follow a thought to its end without being interrupted. You can feel an emotion fully without managing how it appears to others. That sense of ownership is deeply regulating. Neuroscience shows that when we're overstimulated, The brain's default mode network, the system involved in self-reflection, meaning-making, and memory integration, gets crowded out. Solitude reactivates it. That's why alone time often brings clarity. You suddenly understand why something bothered you, or why you've been restless, or what you actually want, not what you were reacting to. This is also why people who prefer being alone are often misunderstood as distant or detached. From the outside, it can look like withdrawal. From the inside, it feels like alignment. Now, let's talk about the emotional side, because this is where a lot of people quietly struggle. Preferring solitude doesn't mean you don't want connection. It means you want the right kind of connection. Depth over frequency, meaning over noise. One honest conversation over 10 surface-level interactions. That can be lonely in a world optimized for speed and performance. You might feel out of sync, like you're living at a different tempo. You might even force yourself to be more social than feels natural, just to avoid judgment, and then wonder why you feel drained, irritable, or oddly empty afterward. That's not failure. That's self-betrayal fatigue. There's a difference between isolation and solitude. Isolation feels imposed. Solitude feels chosen. One shrinks you. The other restores you. People who prefer being alone are often very sensitive to that distinction. They can feel lonely in a crowd and fulfilled in silence. That confuses people who equate presence with connection. Psychology also points to early experiences. Many people who are comfortable alone learned early on how to self-regulate. Maybe they grew up needing to entertain themselves. Maybe they became observers before they became participants. That doesn't automatically mean trauma. Sometimes it just means independence developed early. And independence, when healthy, feels like ease in one's own company. Of course, like anything, solitude can be used defensively. There are times when being alone becomes a shield instead of a sanctuary. Psychology isn't about labeling one preference as good or bad. It's about awareness. Are you choosing alone time because it nourishes you or because it feels safer than being seen? The answer can change over time, and that's okay. What matters is intentionality. There's also a quiet confidence that often grows in solitude. When you're not constantly reflecting yourself through others' reactions, you develop a more stable sense of identity. You learn what you think before you hear what everyone else thinks. That makes you harder to sway, harder to manipulate, harder to rush. You've probably noticed this in people who seem calm in chaos. They don't panic when plans change. They don't chase every opinion. They're not in a hurry to fill silence. That calm often comes from familiarity with their own mind. They've spent time there. They know it won't collapse if left alone. Interestingly, studies on creativity and problem-solving show that people often do their best thinking when they're alone, but connected to others by choice, not obligation. Solitude fuels originality. Social pressure fuels conformity. Neither is evil. But if you're wired for original thought, you'll naturally gravitate toward spaces where your mind can roam freely. So if you're someone who prefers being alone, here's the reframe that psychology invites you into. You're not antisocial. You're selectively social. You're not disconnected. You're internally connected. You're not avoiding life. You're engaging with it from the inside out. The world needs people like you. People who pause before reacting, who listen more than they speak, who think deeply instead of loudly, who recharge in silence and then return with insight, kindness, or clarity that others didn't have time to cultivate. The trick is learning how to honor that preference without turning it into a wall. Solitude works best when it's a home base, not a hiding place, a place you return to, not disappear into. And maybe the most important shift is this. Stop asking, "Why am I like this?" as if it's a flaw. Start asking, "What does this part of me need to thrive?" Because once you respect your own rhythm, the world stops feeling so overwhelming, and being alone stops feeling like an explanation you owe, and starts feeling like a choice you trust. If any of this felt uncomfortably accurate, you're not alone in that either. Take a moment. Sit with it. And if you want, share your thoughts or experiences below. Sometimes the quietest preferences spark the most meaningful conversations.